on his second appearance on the Stephanie Miller Show. Be still my heart. Representative Sean Patrick Maloney. Good morning, Mr. President Representative Maloney. Good to talk to you again.
Hey, it's great to be back with you. This is my second appearance. This time we're gonna. Give me another shot. I'm gonna get it right.
I don't mean to minimize you, but I have called this Dreamy Super Hunk Day on the Stephanie Miller Show because in addition to being a great congressman. Okay.
Yeah, why? Who you got coming on?
Well, we just had Malcolm Nance. We got you, Bob Seska. It's like the Magic Mike of morning radio shows this morning.
I feel like I should tell you should probably get out more.
Well, that's a nice thing to tell a girl in quarantine. Thank you, Representative.
I just feel like if Sean Maloney and Michael Nance is the best we got, he's a pretty good-looking guy.
No.
He's a pretty good-looking guy.
Everybody begs to differ with you. Well, you tweeted, if we're going to get our economy back on track, we're going to need major testing push. That's got to start with Washington. Representative, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. We have templates all over the world for what works. And it is testing. It is tracing. And we are not doing any of the things. We are not at all prepared to reopen this society, are we?
No, and it's infuriating because we have wasted months now. We could have been the world leader in the production of these small, rapid result tests about the size of your key fob for your car, get you an immediate result, non-invasive. We could have flooded the market with hundreds of millions of these devices so that people could know instantly their status. We still need antibody tests to know who has had the virus, so then they can have some confidence they have immunity and can go back to work. Yeah, there's a reason that every successful society, has had a national program of testing, prioritized it, been aggressive about it. And we blew it, and by we I mean the president. And the frustrating thing about that is that we are paying a horrible price. We have a quarter of the population of China, and for some reason we have 8 times the number, 9 times the number of cases, if the data is to be believed. That's unacceptable, and there are so many people suffering. It really does drive you nuts.
And I'm sure, you watch Rachel, I guess it was last night, but just talking about what is like planes, trains, and automobiles? We're going the wrong way. She said, we're some of these states, they're talking about, reopening them all, like in the red states. They're not doing shutdown orders, and they are having clusters, whether it's in South Dakota or I can't remember where else, Nebraska, whatever. They are not only not shutting down, some of them are reopening giant things. And it's just, that's going to make the curve longer for all of us, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, look, ignorance and arrogance, it's a bad combination. And the problem is that ordinary people pay the price. It's an old story, right? I think many of us who've been watching the idiocy that has dominated the Republican Party in recent years long for the days when there were smart, intellectual, capable people who were conservatives, and we would debate issues, and we might not agree on things, but there were smart people, and they were rooted in history and in science and in the kinds of things that we could all agree about, and then you disagree about, a solution or a policy or maybe ideology. And when idiocy started to dominate that party, I think you just knew it wasn't going to end well, because at the end of the day, you need to know what you're doing. And when you're faced with a pandemic, you can happy talk it, you can shift blame, you can dick around, but in the end, the reality of the pandemic lands on ordinary people. And there are thousands of dead New Yorkers, and it's just not funny anymore to watch the Trump show when we know that effective policies are not being implemented and people are paying a price. So I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. I hope that people are seeing in real time the consequences of having someone who doesn't know what they're doing running the country.
Well, I'm reading directly from Politico, Representative, as it goes to we're going the wrong way. The number of COVID-19 tests analyzed each day in the U.S. plummeted by more than 30% over the past week, even though coronavirus infections are still surging in many states and officials are desperately trying to ramp up testing. Where are the tests? I mean, I am not a conspiracy theorist, Representative, but is this deliberate to keep his numbers down, quote unquote, as he said when he didn't want to let the people off the cruise ship initially? What is happening? They've obviously, the testing not only is not ramping up, it's going down.
Yeah, it's frustrating. And at this point, it's clear that the solution is coming, such as it is, from the states that are hardest hit, from the private labs, from the medical facilities that have developed their own tests. And we've made progress in some places, but it's not a substitute for leadership from the top. And I think you're right. I think in the beginning there was a clear effort by the president to minimize this, downplay the problem, and he just really didn't want to know the numbers, and he thought he could just I guess bury our heads in the sand and pretend this wasn't gonna have the impact it has, and we're paying a terrible price for it.
Yeah, New York Times, and that's because here you are in New York, Representative. I mean, where I can't even imagine you're having a 9/11 a day in New York, and it's an estimated 90% of the deaths might have been prevented by putting social distancing policies into effect on March 2nd. This from New York Times. The effort would have been substantial had the policies been imposed even on March 9th, resulting in approximately a 60% reduction. I mean, the fact that we are so late and so many tens of thousands of lives into this is, I just feel like he's making it worse every day. And you must feel terribly frustrated in Congress to go, what can we do to stop this madman? I mean, Governor Pritzker yesterday just said he's given up. He's given up expecting or asking for anything from the federal government. Your states back there, our states out here in California, they're forming their own, coalitions based on science and data for reopening or for dealing with this, right? I mean, we are really on our own.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I do think you're seeing, though, that when it comes to a pandemic, all of us doing a little ultimately is even more powerful than a few people doing a lot. So as desperately as we need the president to do a lot, it is equally important that we all do a little. And because we have changed our behavior in New York dramatically, we have leveled off. We've saved the healthcare system through the heroic efforts of all those people working in it, but also by all of us who just did what we were told to social distance and to stay home and work remotely if you can. And that has leveled this thing off in a way that we can absorb even the huge number of cases still through the healthcare system. And you see the death number, which is a lagging indicator and is so painful to hear every day. But the fact is that we are coming through this in one piece in New York only because the state leadership stepped forward, did the right thing. You're seeing that elsewhere in the country. Look, I don't know what to tell you. I think there are lots of hopeful things in this. I am inspired by my own community here. We had a funeral for a local parent who died. Our kids go to school together. Hundreds of people showed up in their cars following the guidelines to be socially distant. But there were hundreds of cars in this little community in the Hudson Valley because people want to reach out to one another. So I think there are inspiring actions by our first responders, by the healthcare workers. There's so much good going on right now in the midst of this terrible epidemic. I hope we can focus on some good stuff too, because I think about the president does just make you want to pull your hair out.
And and you have a buzz cut, so that's difficult for you. But
hey, hold on now.
But that's why I appreciate you in congressional form and in Twitter form, because you're highlighting, you say, in times of crisis, true heroes emerge. To every healthcare professional, transit worker, grocery store employee, caretaker, first responder, and teacher, you keep our nation going. Postal employees, you said, are working on the front lines, risking everything to get folks in all corners of this country the goods, supplies, prescription drugs they need. This is not how we treat heroes in America. And now, by the way, I don't even want to know what you think about people being delayed their stimulus checks so that Donald Trump's name can be on their checks, which is our money. It's taxpayer money, and it's you in Congress that appropriated it, not him. But he's holding up critical support for people so his name can be on the check.
Yeah, it's just one more example of where the president's head is, and it's always about him, and it's not about the people he's supposed to serve. I hope people are seeing through that. I hope that what comes out of this is a clear choice, that there is a guy running against him who's a decent public servant who spent his career trying to build community, put people first, who can understand when people are suffering, who kind of lives and breathes the struggles of working and middle-class people. That's the hope for some of us, that a guy like Joe Biden is going to provide an alternative to this style of leadership we're seeing. The priority should be getting help to people, not getting credit.
Yep, yep. I'm grateful that you're just out there every day. You're tweeting, "Don't get complacent. This fight isn't over. Stay home. Save lives." I mean, I'm so struck, as I'm sure you are, by all these just people featured on TV. Not just people who've lost loved ones, but nurses and doctors, and just these heartbreaking stories, and them crying and begging people, "Please, you don't want to get this. Please stay home." And it's like I say, speaking of, taking credit, Trump acts once again like he's doing this. Like, oh, look at what a great job we're doing. It's like, no, we're doing this. We're flattening the curve against your advice, basically, right?
Well, that's exactly right. And even when they claim credit for the number of tests that have been done, those are in the states that did them themselves because the federal government wasn't. Look at what New York has done here, and then the president takes credit for those numbers. It's nuts. But your larger point's the right one, which is that, and maybe this is an old story in America, where every once in a while you just see the leadership fail, you see the elites kind of fail. And it is the regular GI who wins World War II on the beaches of Normandy. It's the regular guy in the trench, or Rosie the Riveter, or millions of individual Americans doing the right thing by their kids and their communities that pull us through, and ultimately vindicates this whole democratic experiment. Because right now, the good that is being shown by all those people who are going to work, helping their neighbors, putting themselves at risk, doing it even as their own families are being rocked by this economic downturn. I'm inspired by that. I think there's a lot of good in this country, and you see it all around. And I hope it is not lost, because what gets the headlines is the failure at the top.
Yep. And by the way, you tweeted about Bill Barr. You said a new low even for Barr. These people that are so outside their area of expertise, just basically saying, you should be able to go out. It is so, he is not a medical expert. No one on this committee to reopen America is a doctor or an expert. And once again, we're in a very dangerous time. Right? Again, the president doesn't have the power to order states to do anything, but are enough states going to listen to him if that we're going to be experiencing a fresh new nightmare?
Yeah, look, everyone wants to kiss the sailor in Times Square, but you got to win the war first.
Yeah. Wow,
that was a good one,
that's
sir.
Awesome.
You can't declare victory and have the party before you put down the enemy. So what do you say we win the war, and then we will come roaring back, and we will lead the world again. I promise you. And I don't begrudge people who are like, hey, how do we make this thing work? How do we get back out there? How do we do this in a way that is rooted in science, that's smart, but that gets this economy going again? That is a good instinct to have. But the president has consistently tried to deny the reality here, and there is no way out but through, ladies and gentlemen. We've got to get through this, and then we will get out of it. And I just think that is the problem, is that until you just really get honest about what we're dealing with and defeat it, we can't get back to where we want to be.
I have a new dream, and that you are the sailor I kiss in Times Square right before you take the stage at New York Sexy Liberal with me and Malcolm Nance and Ellie Mistal. When we do New York Sexy Liberal, whenever that is, with your post-quarantine hair.
I just feel like if we did that on social media, the followers we would get. Just think about the.
That's true.
So let's just reenact it when this is over.
You're just going for the likes. I love
Listen,
that.
we're both gay. It's all for the picture.
I'm not sure that's like keeping with CDC guidelines.
We'll both wear masks.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. You got to get the sequence right.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Representative. Talk to you again soon. Appreciate it.
All right, guys.
All right.
Stay safe.
Thanks,
All right. You
Congressman.
too. Bye-bye.